So, today's class we will talk about fatal falls and what is the hazard on fall all about. Okay. So, primarily this lecture and the subsequent lecture will be on concreting operation. So, one fatality will be followed by a particular operation where this hazard is fall hazard is too much. So, we will cover accordingly in the remaining few weeks. Okay, so what do you mean by hazards in construction? Okay, so in construction, based on the place or the mode of fatality, the researchers have categorized the fatality into 4 different categories. So, number 1 in the rank is falls, then next is struck by or cave in, then we have caught in between and electrocution. So, this order it changes from place to place, but falls is always ranked as number 1 in many of the construction sites. Okay, if you see the trend in falls, even though so much of efforts have been taken place in several construction firms, the number of fatal falls is still on the higher side only, and this is a record which I have taken from 2011 to 14, which also shows there is an increasing number in the number of falls. Okay, this is not that we don't take any preventive measures on falls, but still the projects are little complicated and complex in nature, and there are other issues also behind which the fatality in falls has not come down. So, now let us talk more about falls. If you look at falls, there is actually fall on the same level or on the same floor on the walking or working surface. That is how it is generally referred. Okay. So, that falls is generally associated with 2 other terminology, which is nothing but slips, trips and falls. So, let us try to understand what is this slips, trips and falls. So, slip, when there is too little friction or traction between your feet and the working or walking surface, then you try to imbalance and you fall, that is primarily called slip. Trip is when your foot starts to move and but your gets hit with an obstacle, but your body keeps trying to move, and as a result you lose your balance and you just fall. Okay. So, slip or trip is associated with a fall, and fall generally happens as a result of these two. So, falling on the same level or surface. Okay. So, what is this real issue on falls? Even falls on the same level should be avoided. Okay. So, reasons for some of the falls on the same level as a result of slip or a trip can be a wet floor, it can be improper housekeeping. You can see a picture of a construction site wherein all the materials are scattered all over the working platform, and center of gravity imbalances. Maybe you try to, instead of stepping down a ladder and pushing the ladder to another position and then trying to reach out an activity or a material, you try to grab the material from the place where you have put the ladder. So, as a result you result in awkward positions or postures in job sites. So, you lose the balance and then you try to fall off. An example can be shown as shown here. So, this is a person and the center of gravity is actually can be marked as a triangle, keeping in the lower to a chest level to your legs. Okay. These are the 3 points, and if you try to move your body wherein this middle point goes away from these 2 points, then you lose your balance and you try to fall off. Okay. So, maybe you try to work something on your floor level or something away from your place, and you try to extend sideways or upward. As a result, your body's equilibrium starts changing and then there is a fall. Impact generally, whatever has been reported so far as a result of falls on the same level is only minor injury, and this we have seen earlier what is minor injury and all in the first classes. So, it can be a sprain, strain, bruises, contusions, fracture and abrasions, whatever you want. Affected body parts can be any one of the body parts. Okay. So, what are the possible falls to predominantly a lower level, not on the same level? Now, we are really talking about the falls. Okay. So, there is an IS code which has given a very big list on what are all the possible falls to a little specific height or a lower level. So, from height such as various floors or scaffolds, sloping roofs, hoists, ladders or poles, platforms, etc., which are all erected for execution of the work. In pits, okay, so always falls need not happen from a height above your ground floor and then to the ground floor. It can also happen from the ground floor level to what we call basement or something like a pit or an open hole or something. So, in pits such as lift shafts or downstairs or chutes, basements and excavation, into water, maybe you slip inside a water body, so it can be well, sea or etc. Through roof covering such as tiles, slates or sheets, and falls from sloping of fragile roofs. In sewers, through manholes or tunnels, which can contain also other hazards like foul air, dirty water, filth and so on. From chimneys, steel structures, plant machinery etc., such as hoists, cranes, trucks, dumpers and so on. So, this is not the complete list. So, falls can happen from anywhere, okay. So, in any part of your construction work. So, we have to be very careful with the falls. So, now the next question that can come to you is, what is the height, okay, below which I am safe and above which I should take proper precautions, okay. So, there is also a statistics on the fatal falls with regard to the height of the structure or from where the worker or a person has fallen down. So, if you see the height of the structure, it starts from 6 feet, less than 6 feet to more than 30 feet high, and the percentage of fatality as a result of falls is also given here. So, this is a record in 2015. So, in 2015, 16.9% of all fatal falls were from height 10 feet or less. So, OSHA recommends any fall protection for height above 6 feet, okay, which is considered as an tolerable limit. So, above 6 feet, if you want to work in a site, it recommends that there should be a proper fall protection devices. So, what happens when a person is about to fall, okay. So, anatomy of a fall. So, you should first know why this fall is very dangerous and what happens when you try to fall. So, this fall is a very dangerous hazard because of the reason that the minute you try to realize you are about to fall, you would have fallen a very very much in depth, okay. So, it takes 0.33 seconds to become aware that you are about to fall, and in the 0.33 seconds your body would have fallen at least 2 feet. It takes 0.66 seconds for the body to react, okay. So, in that 0.66 seconds the body would have fallen at least 6 to 7 feet, and by the time you generate movement, you realize that you are falling and you try to grab something close by, you would have at least fallen 10 feet, and in 2 seconds the estimated fall is about 64 feet. So, that is where fall is considered to be really dangerous, okay. So, if you see the violations, we can still prevent falls, okay. As explained in the first class, many of these hazards can be easily prevented or at least minimized in the sites if you follow certain safety protocols, okay. So, if you look at violations in 2019, there is a compilation on violations as given by OSHA. So, among the 10 violations, at least 4 violations with regard to falls were around 15,000 something as against 31,000. So, half of all the violations that happened in 2019 were all related to falls only. Because of the violations, the falls are still happening in construction sites and which should be avoided. Okay. Now, some more statistics. Where are the real falls happening? We know falls are there, but from where exactly the major fatality has happened? From roof, that ranks number 1 in fatal falls, next is ladder, and the third one is scaffold. So, we are going to discuss only these 3 hazards in detail in today's class: roof, ladder and scaffold. So, types of non-fatal falls, again from ladder, and that is really high, okay. From ladder lot of non-fatal falls have happened, and the next one is from staging or scaffolds, okay. And who are all the workers who have been affected with the fatal falls? Iron worker, roofer, welder, laborer and so on. So, the list also is little quite a number of people are really affected because of the fall hazards. Okay. So, now let us start looking at each one of the hazards in detail. So, number one is holes and openings. So, holes or openings, primarily it is an open space from where something falls or a person falls. Okay. So, now what is a dimension? Dimension varies from OSHA and also IS code. IS code talks about a different dimension and OSHA says something else. Okay. So, that you can really refer to, but in general logical sense, if you want to understand what is a hole and what is a opening, holes are nothing but a very small opening on your floor or your ground surface from where you may try to fall material or objects, or you may also have a slip or a trip hazard. Okay, some of the pictures here are all shown here will tell you what is a hole. An opening is a really large gap or void on a floor or a working surface, and wherein a person and objects along with the person can also fall and have a hazard. A hole means a gap or a void. It can be in a floor, roof or other walking or working surface which should be covered, and example can be pipe opening, belt holes and so on. And an opening which is measuring more than 30 centimeters or more as given by the IS codes. So, in a floor, platform, pavement through which employees can fall to a real lower level. Example is hatchway, stair or ladder opening, pit or large manhole. So, similarly there is a related terminology in walls, okay, when the same opening happens along the wall. So, similarly you have a hole and a opening also. So, how do we now overcome this hazard? Okay, for a hole there is a specific way to overcome. You can have hole covers. Okay. So, the hole covers, again there are so many ways of thinking about what can be a right cover and how to identify and show that it is a hole cover. So, hole covers, if you want to put it on a roadway, then this cover should at least support 2 times the maximum axle load of the largest vehicle that has passed through that cover. Okay. In a given particular day, maybe you think of a very large vehicle that is supposed to cross the roadway, and the maximum axle load of that largest vehicle, at least 2 times that load, it has to be supportive. This hole must be able to tolerate. And other covers should support twice the load of weight of employees, equipment, material, whatever is supposed to pass on in that cover. Okay, and these covers should also be secured, should not be displaced by the movement of people, wind or equipment, and all these covers should be brightly color coded and written nicely that it is a hole cover, and written maybe as warning. Okay, hole cover, do not remove, and all these can be done. Okay, so, there are a lot of ways of warning the workers who are passing by that this is not a normal regular floor and it is a hole cover which is laid over there. Okay, some more pictures on opening. So, this is a floor opening and this is a wall opening. Okay, and both these hazards are not properly safeguarded. Okay. Then unprotected sides and edges. When you talk about wall openings and so on, then the other terminology which comes close by is unprotected sides and edges. Okay, so the edges are along a slab construction or maybe a roof construction should also be properly safeguarded. Okay, if you see here, there is a rope for safeguarding, but it is not a real protection, and otherwise if you want to use ropes as a safeguard measure, then there should be standard practice of how to put the ropes. So, this is a staircase edge protection. You can see the staircase here, and there is no edge protection at all. Okay, even this floor also it is not protected properly. Okay, this is an unprotected sides and edges. Okay, if you see here, this complete opening is not at all safeguarded. Okay. Okay, this is also an edge of an floor. Okay, and completely it's unsafe. Okay, there is no protection at all here. So, what are the ways to safeguard a opening like this? Maybe it is an opening, or maybe it is a wall opening, or it can be an open edge or a floor. So, the only one way to protect is guardrails, which we will see little later after understanding what is a roof slope and so on, because both these hazards require the same fall protection. Okay. So, now in the roof slopes, okay, roof slopes are conventionally classified as 3 types. Number 1 is flat roof, then you have low slope roof, and the other one is a steep slope roof. Okay. Flat roof, suppose if there is a run of 12, okay, you have to have a rise of 0 to 2, then it is primarily called as a flat roof. For the same 12 run, you may have 2 to 4, then it is called a low slope roof, and 4 and above on the run, then we call it as a steep slope roof. Okay. And each employee, whether they are working on a low slope roof or a steep slope roof, should have a proper fall protection in place. Okay. And even for flat roof, where there is an unprotected edges or sides along all the 4 corners, then again there should be adequate fall protection in place for those workers. Okay. So, now the fall protection, as I told, for any opening or any unprotected edges or sides or for a slope roof is primarily called guardrails. Okay. So, what is this guardrail? This guardrail is primarily nothing but a 3-line member, okay, 3 horizontal lines. The top line is primarily called top rail, then we have mid rail and the toe board, and with adequate vertical planks along along the support, so that these 3 rails are in position. Okay. And the height of all these rails are also given. So, the top rail should be at least 43 inches in height, okay, and the mid one should be 21, and the toe board should be at least 3.5, okay. And if you want to leave a gap between the floor and the toe board, it should not be more than 0.25, okay. So, this is what is a dimension of the 3 rails, okay. And if you talk about the load, the top rail should be able to withstand 200 pounds of weight, okay, which comes on it. The mid rail at least 150, and the toe board should be at least 50. Okay. And the thickness also, it's all given here in this picture, and as such the guardrails should be in place in the sides. Now, if you talk about the weight requirement, the entire guardrail should be able to support at least 200 pounds or 100 kgs of force on any direction along the top edge. Okay. It can be on outward, forward, downward direction, whatever direction you apply. There can be a deflection, and the deflection should not be more than 39 inches from the walking or the working surface. So, if this is 43 plus or minus 3, and this deflection can go only till here. Okay. So, this deflection is nothing but is mentioned as 39. Okay. It cannot go below that. If that is the case, then this rails has to be inspected and accordingly braced for use. And this guardrails are used, if they are used as a point of access for ladderways or something, then they should have a proper gate also, so that they are not disturbed, and actually the people are walking in and moving out when there is a guardrail in place. If the any site is using manila or plastic or synthetic ropes, then they should be also tested very frequently in order to check for their strength requirements, okay, whether they are still withstanding the strength requirements or not. Okay, these are some of the pictures on where guardrails are in place. This is primarily an floor opening, and there is a guardrail which is painted in orange color, which is bright, which is actually visible from a far off distance, saying that there is a guardrail in place. This is a wall opening which again has the guardrail in place and as a safety precaution. This is also a floor and a wall opening which has primarily a guardrail. Okay, so this is a wall opening and the guardrails are missing here, and this is also a picture of a wall opening and where there is a guardrail missing. And suppose if the worker has to use tilts or elevated heights to reach the roof surface, then accordingly the guardrail heights has to be elevated and adjusted as shown in this picture. Okay. So, we have discussed about the floor or roof openings and slopes of the roof, and also we have talked about hole covers and guardrails, which are primarily the major safety precaution for when you are working on for against falls. Now, the next hazard is primarily a scaffold. Okay, if you see scaffold, now let us discuss what is this scaffold, where is it used, and what are the other terminology, types of scaffold, and everything we will see along with the safety precaution as well. If you see a very simple scaffold in a small construction site, it looks very simple like this with lot of logs on different places tied vertically and horizontally, through which people climb and do their concreting and masonry work, brickwork and masonry work. So, in general, if you see the scaffold terminology, so scaffold is nothing but an elevated temporary working platform for enabling the workers to to climb up onto the and reach the working place. And this is a temporary structure which consists of standards, putlogs, ledgers, and generally of bamboo or timber or even metal, aluminum. There are so many scaffold material has come in place, and also we have customized scaffold as well as commercially available manufacturer scaffold also available these days to provide a working platform for workmen and material during construction, maintenance, repairs and demolition, and to support or allow hoisting and lowering of workmen, their tools and materials. So, the different parts, number one is standard or upright. It is a vertical or a near vertical member used in the construction of scaffold for transferring the load to the foundation. So, these are the main member in the scaffold. The next one is putlog. Putlog is a scaffold member spanning from your ledger to ledger, from the ledger or standard to your building, and upon which the platform rests. Okay. And what is a ledger? It is a horizontal member which ties the standard at right angles and which may support the putlogs and also the other members. Brace, a member fixed diagonally across two or more members in a scaffold, primarily to have a stability of the whole scaffold. Raker, it is an inclined member fixed to the scaffold to ensure stability, and ties are used to tie the scaffold for the structure in order to prevent the horizontal movement of the scaffold. Okay, if you see some pictures of the scaffold, these are the pictures and all the parts are all labeled here. And if you see here, if the scaffold platform is not stable, then you can also have an base plate, okay, so that the scaffolds are firmly put in place. Okay. Now, let us talk about each and every part of the scaffold and what does the safety requirements talk about. So, scaffold's capacity, each scaffold or its scaffold component should be capable of supporting without any failure at least 4 times the maximum intended load. If you plan for a load x, it should be at least able to accept 4x the load. Okay. And platform construction, so each platform unit shall be so installed between the adjacent units, and the space between the platform and the uprights is not more than 1.5 centimeters wide. Okay. So, suppose if these are your standards, between your standards and your planks, the scaffold planks, you can have not more than 1 inch width gap. Okay. And between the scaffold planks, you should not have any gaps, and it should be so arranged so closely like this. Okay. And these are the outriggers in order to have a fixed a mobile scaffold in order to keep it in position, and also you can have hatch platforms for movement of people and material. Okay. Some do's and don'ts on the scaffolds. Do not sit on the handrails. Okay. So, these handrails or the guardrails are primarily for safety of the scaffold in order to prevent people from falling down. Okay. So, you should not be sitting on the handrails. Do not throw anything from the scaffold so that it falls on people or any public who are passing by that place, and do not overload the scaffold unnecessarily. Okay. Do not try to keep material more than what is necessary, and even though it can support 4 times the load. Okay. Scaffold platform, now let us talk about the platform. So, the platforms should not be wherever the platforms have to be overlapped in order to have a very long length of the scaffold. So, they can be overlapped only on the supports, and this overlap should not be less than 12 inches or 30 centimeters in width, and this should happen only along the supports and not on the middle of the support. Okay. And the scaffold planks beyond the end support shall not be more than 12 inches and not less than 6 inches. Okay. And it should not be used as a cantilever action or something. So, people should not be loading material or something over there, but only for an end support and end vicinity it can be extended. Now, platform width, the platform width, if it is not more than 2 meters, then it is primarily used for painters, decorators and other people, and other men and material also can use. For other men and material, the platform width should be 500 mm, and for painters, decorators, they can have a platform, they need a platform width of 300 mm. If the platform height is more than 2 meters above the ground or from the floor from where material are lifted and supplied, then you can have a standard platform width of 500 mm. Okay. You can also have access ways or ramp ways like this and for usage, and this is also a bad working platform for usage. Okay. And even the workers have not used a proper PPE also in this particular picture. Okay. Now, the scaffold end platform as a cantilever should not be loaded up and used like a cantilever means, unless it is specifically designed for tipping load, which is primarily the cantilever action. Unless it is specifically designed and recommended, it should not be used as a normal platform. The side and end brackets designed to support people only and not for equipment and for other, only for inspections or for checking something people can use, but not for loading and storage of materials. And these do not store materials and only store materials on scaffolds which are for immediate use, and if it is for a long term use, after 1 day or 2 days only you need something, then do not load those material onto the scaffold. Also, do not overload the platform with too much of materials, because it can have a trip hazard also when workers are passing by the scaffold. Means of access to scaffolds, how do these workers along with the equipment and material try to access the scaffold? So, the means IS code and OSHA recommends 3 means as an access to scaffolds. One is ladder, workers can use ladder, or there can be ramps or stairways. Okay. Stairways are generally used when you want to use the scaffold for a long term purpose. For example, the construction will take like for several months. Okay, it will run for several months, then it is not advisable to use a ladder or a ramp, better to make a staircase. Otherwise, ladder is the safest means of use if it is for a short term purpose, and ramps are also used for easy lifting of materials and movement of materials. So, stairways for scaffolds exceeding 4 meter in height, stairways are the safest means of access. And how should these stairways be for preventing from falls? The treads and risers should be uniform width and height in any one particular flight, and the minimum width should be 1 meters, and the maximum angle of ascent should be 50 degrees, and the stair railings should be there on all open sides and handrails should be there on closed sides, and standard railings and toe boards should also be there on all landings. Okay, you should have an safety precaution of guardrails even on the landings. Ramps or gangways, it's advantageous for access to scaffold platforms from hoisting towers or from adjacent floor levels. But if you have difference in levels between the two platforms, then ramps are not the good source of solution. If the ramp or runway is 1.5 meters above the ground floor level, then it is recommended to have a protection with the standard rails and toe boards, and the slope of the ramp should not exceed 2:3. In the sense, for every 2 meters in height, the horizontal length should be 3. Okay. If the slope is more than 1 in 4, okay, in the sense, so your horizontal is 4 and vertical is 1, if it is more than that, then there should be a proper fall protection on either sides, or the ramp should also have cleats at places, so that it creates friction for the movement of material and people. The last option is ladders. There are so many ways of means to access. You can have portable ladders, there are hook on ladders and attachable ladders. Hook on ladders and attachable ladders are generally designed along with the scaffolds. So, along with the scaffold it comes with the proper design, and portable ladders are designed separately, okay, and we will talk about the safety of portable ladders in the next few slides. Some quick recap on hazards in scaffolds. So, this is a picture on improper scaffolding. If you see here, the scaffold itself is not done properly, okay, and there can be a hazard of cuts or maybe an danger here. Poor housekeeping along the platform, you should not be loading material on the platform, and also the platform is not regular, okay, in the sense it is actually not aligned properly, so that the workers may have a fall hazard. So, improper support, if you see here, the ladder itself is not in place, okay, and the worker is trying to operate something with the roof. So, this is an improper support. Improper access, you should also have a proper means of access for accessing a scaffold, and this is not a proper access. If you see here, these are the improper access to reach a scaffold. Improper working platform, if you see here, all the planks are overlapped, not along the supports, but also you should be secured so that the planks are not disturbed by the movement of people and material or equipment. Okay. If you see here, it is not properly fixed in place, and no safety harness by the worker for working in scaffolds. Then incomplete walkway, the walkway itself has a gap, okay, has a huge gap or an opening. Unsafe act of using the scaffold for resting. So, these are all some of the pictures to show, and this is what we have discussed on scaffolds. Now, let us move on to types of scaffold. Researchers have classified the scaffold into 3 types. Number 1 is supported scaffold, which is called conventional scaffold. Supported scaffolds are all either fixed to the ground or they are mobile, which can be still fixed to the firm fixed to the ground, okay. And these have platforms supported by rigid load bearing members such as poles, legs, frames or outriggers, and they are either mobile or they are permanently fixed to one place. Suspended scaffolds are generally hanging scaffolds from 2 rigid supports which are actually overhead, okay. They are primarily from the roofs or somewhere above the building construction, and from there through ropes or strings there is a scaffold platform, and from where workers they try to finish up their work. The other one is specialty scaffolds, and there are lot of examples in specialty scaffolds like horse scaffolds, crawling boards and so on. And the last one is aerial lifts, okay. Aerial lifts are like cherry pickers or boom trucks, wherein using a truck and with a boom you can have a small aerial lifts, and the workers can reach the particular place and finish up their work, okay. So, these are the 3 types of very famous 3 types of scaffolds, and we will talk about the safety measures only for supported scaffolds and for suspended scaffolds. Now, supported scaffolds, there are so many types available. Number 1 is fabricated frames, okay, which we also call it as a pole scaffolds, and again there are so many types available there. The other one is mobile scaffold, which can be moved from one place to another along with the guardrails and the platform deck and the access to the scaffold, it can be moved. And the third one is ladder jack scaffolds, okay, which has 2 ladders along with the scaffold support, and through which again there are several types of ladder jack supports are there, and with this also the scaffolds can be moved and accessed. Now, safety measures for supported scaffolds, and again there are so many points listed out here, but many of them will be really simple and easy for you to go through if you go through along with the steps. Number 1 is all the scaffolds should be designed and constructed properly, okay, and if you want to get a commercial manufactured assembly, then you should not have different manufacturers parts which you try to fix it in the site, okay. It should be from a single manufacturer, or it should be compatible so that the couplings and others are all easily getting fastened, okay. Otherwise they are not advisable to be used in the construction sites. Design each scaffold and also never fix the parts if they are not compatible with each other, okay. Never try to hammer it or do something so that the parts are getting two pipes are getting connected or something. So, do not try to do any such practices in the construction site. And the ground should be so leveled before you place the scaffold, and if the ground is not leveled or maybe one side the poles are sinking into the ground, then you should have proper platform or some base plate so that the poles are all standing firm onto the ground without sinking movement. And the planks should be so stacked that as close as possible, and so that there is no gaps in order to avoid the slips or the trips. And the end support should be at least 6 to 12 inches over, and the overlapping of planks should be at least 12 inches minimum and should happen only on the supports. And to cover right angle planks, so generally cross planks can be laid, okay. There is one scaffold this direction, one scaffold in this direction, and you wanted to cover these two, you can have cross planks. And in order to do this, and these cross planks should be secured first, and then only you should put the normal planks and finish up the right angle planks. And 14 inches is generally the width of the platform, and all platforms should be protected with guardrails, okay. If the height of the scaffold is more than 6 feet and above, you should have a proper guardrail protection. And do not paint the planks. What happens is, most of the time there will be visual inspections on the scaffolds. So, any splinters or any cracks or anything that is seen in the planks will go hidden if you start painting the planks, okay. So, do not paint the planks so that these damages are really visible, and avoid any power lines, overhead power lines when you are putting the scaffolds, okay. So, that and it is not touching the power lines, and if you are primarily using a metal scaffold, then you should be very careful and having a clear minimal distance when against a power line when you are using a metal scaffold. Do not climb the scaffold along the cross braces, and always try to have access to the scaffolds either by ramps, stairs or ladders. Then access by walkways, ladders, ladder towers or ramps should always be used. OSHA recommends angle of 20 degrees with the ground for the ramps. If the ramps are 6 feet above the ground, then you should have a guardrail. And always try to keep material as well as debris to be minimum on the scaffolds. And if you are trying to have so many debris collecting onto the scaffolds, try to have a debris net, and at least the toe board should be little wider in height so that it is actually collecting the objects from falling down. And also, if you think of material which can be tripping and falling down, you can still put a debris nets. If heavy objects are to be used in scaffolds, the area should be barricaded, and personal fall arrest systems and proper PPE are supposed to be used for the workers who work on the scaffolds, and also for any worker and supervisors who visit the site and do the inspections. For all it is recommended, okay. The next type of scaffold is suspended scaffolds. As I told, these suspended scaffolds are working platforms and scaffolds which are from a roof or any place which is above the construction, and there is like a hanging support. Again, there are so many types here: multi levels, needle beam, interior hung, float ships, multiple point adjustable, okay, then 2-point adjustable, single point adjustable, and you also have catenary scaffolds. Okay. So, most of the safety precautions which I am going to talk about in the suspended scaffold will be easily fitting in for 2-point adjustable scaffolds. Now, we will talk about the safety precautions. Again, as I told, all scaffolds should be designed, constructed, erected under the supervision of a skilled person, and you should do proper care while you are designing and constructing these scaffolds. Design each scaffold and supervise to prevent scaffold collapse due to overload or instability, and there should be a competent person who should do full inspection before using the scaffold, and every time you start using the suspended scaffold, and it should be fully inspected and then only it should be used. Okay. And since these scaffolds are actually overhanging from the top support, any pipes or any protrusions onto the wall or the surface from where the scaffolds are hanging should all be avoided, and accordingly the scaffolds should be suspended. Okay, because it can have trip of the scaffold, or it can even have a trip or movement of the scaffold itself. And again, maintain safe distance from the power lines. And outrigger beams are actually the beams from where the entire scaffold is hanging at, and which is used to move the scaffolds up and down. It should be in a tie back, should be very strong enough, and it should be having an equal strength of 2 times or 4 times the maximum intended load of the scaffold, along with the people and material and equipment. To save more, these outrigger beams should be very rigid and attached onto a particular place. Check and inspect the suspension ropes. Now, we are talking about the ropes. The ropes should be very clear from wear and tear, abrasions, burns. Sometimes you may do some welding or you may use chemicals, and as a result there can be a wear and tear onto the ropes. So, that should be inspected, and there should not be any kinks or small knots. Kinks are nothing but knots. When there is any knot, it will actually have an unsmooth movement of the scaffold up and down, and as a result it may have a scaffold collapse. Safety brakes should also be designed, and because the speed of the scaffold also depends on the wind speed and so on. So, sometimes the speed is too high during a fall, okay, during a descending movement. There should be an adequate safety brake, so that the speed of the scaffold is really controlled in order to have a smooth movement in ascending and descending both the ways. And electric driven motors are generally advised to operate the scaffolds rather than gas driven motors in order to prevent fire protections. Suspension ropes should be of desirable length and should not be too short, so that the workers are actually trying to reach a particular place in order to prevent an awkward positions. Okay, that we have talked about imbalance and awkward positions. So, the workers should be able to reach a any place in the wall or in the construction site very easily, and accordingly the suspension ropes should be very long and proper size. Limit the use of tools or debris to a minimum in the scaffold, so that what happens is sometimes these materials or debris can also move on the platform. So, you should be trying to keep as minimal material onto the scaffold, and advisable to have screens or nets, because this is a suspended and a moving scaffold. So, in order to have a safe precaution of falling objects or materials, screens or nets can be put so that material does not fall down. And do not lean onto the scaffold, and what happens is if you try to lean onto the scaffold or onto the wall surface, then the scaffold will start swinging. And when the scaffold starts swinging, and based on the load, it can also have a collapse or fall of material and persons. And do not use any material like, for example, some bricks or paint box or something in order to reach a height which is not in your vicinity. Okay, do not try to do in order to increase or adjust your height to the reach of particular workspace. Use personal fall arrest systems, which is always a safe precaution when you are working on heights. Lifelines should also be clear of obstacles when there are more than one worker and 2 or 3 workers are there. Each of their lifelines should not be moving here and there, in the sense every worker lifeline should be clear of obstacles and they should be able to use the lifelines properly when the fall happens. The guardrails should be installed on all working surfaces and along with the debris mesh, if required, will prevent falling of person and falling of objects also. And as I told, there is one separate suspended scaffold which we will discuss, and aerial lift safety we are not covering in this course. So, suspended scaffold, there is a special variety of suspended scaffold called Jula, which is also called boatswain's chair, which is primarily designed for one worker to sit and finish his work. Okay, it has a seat to support a workman in a sitting position and supported by rope strings and attached to a suspension rope. Okay, so designed to support only one worker, and the seat dimensions are all given here to support the weight of an average worker, and these seat slings should pass through the 4 corner holes and should also be crossing on the underside of the seat. Okay, on the underside of the seat it generally has to cross on the sides so that it supports the worker and he is comfortable in finishing up his work. General safety, again a recap on the scaffolds that we have talked so far. Scaffolds shall be provided for all work that cannot be safely performed on the ground or from solid construction works. So, scaffold erection, whether suspended or supported, shall be carried only by skilled workmen or by a competent authority under the guidance of a supervisor. The erection, alterations, dismantling of scaffold should be done only under the supervision of a competent person, and even the maintenance of the scaffolds also should be taken care properly. And suppose when the scaffold is under erection, it should have a red tag which says unsafe for use. Okay, and scaffold erection area should also be barricaded so that public are not disturbing the scaffold erection, and also there is no hazard happening. Use of cross braces as means of access to the scaffold should not be permitted, and there can be proper means of access like ladders, stairs or ramps for accessing the scaffold. Lifting of scaffolding materials should be done only with the rope and pulley arrangement and not by workers carrying along with them. Working platforms should be fully decked and not be able to displaced and provided with proper guardrails, and every platform, gangway, runs or stairs should be kept free from any unnecessary obstruction. Maybe the material which are moved should not be left here and there. Any obstruction, material, rubbish, projecting nails and so on, and even grease, mud, paint or plaster or any such substances which can create a slip of the workers or material should also be avoided on the scaffold. And every supporting member used in the construction of runways, platforms, ramps should be securely fastened and braced, because that should prevent lateral displacement. If the scaffolds are to be used for a great extent for a long period of time, then there should be a proper staircase or stairway wide enough to allow 2 people to access to the scaffold should be laid down. And these stairways should also have handrails and adequate safety precautions from falls. A scaffold platform plank should not project beyond its end supports, and again this dimensions all we have discussed earlier. And all scaffolds or working platforms of any nature should be securely fastened to the building or structure, and if they are independently standing away from the building, then there should be adequate supports to prevent tipping of the scaffold. And all scaffolds or working platforms should be fastened, and there should be cross braces to prevent the collapse of the scaffolds. Safety codes should be strictly followed on all these temporary structures, because these temporary structures are going to be supporting the permanent structure later on. So, it should be properly, all safety precautions should be properly followed. Safety nets should also be provided to prevent fall of persons from height if there is a possibility of fall from height. Now, the next hazard that we are going to study will be on ladders. Okay. So far we have talked about floor openings or roof openings and wall openings, and also we have talked about slopes of the roofs, then hole covers and guardrails as a safety precaution, and then we have discussed scaffolds, types of scaffolds and all the safety issues with scaffolds. Now, the access to scaffold, from that point of view we will discuss ladders. Okay. And ladders, now again there are so many types of ladders, and safety precautions for each and every ladder is also a little different from one ladder to another. So, ladder is an appliance or an equipment usually consisting of two side rails. Okay, there are two side rails which are joined together at regular intervals with cross pieces, and which is also called as steps, rungs or cleats, and primarily used for ascending or descending movement between 2 points at different levels. That is a definition of a ladder. Now, there are so many portable ladders which we are going to discuss in today's class. Number one is built up ladders. As the name implies, built up ladders are job made ladders. So, these built up ladders are built on the job site to suit any site requirement, and it is not commercially manufactured. It does not come with proper dimensions, and it primarily the unskilled worker and skilled worker in the particular site, they start fixing up the ladders to suit the requirements of the construction site. They are temporary and are used until a particular phase of work is completed, and then they again dismantle and use for another set of a work. Okay. So, this is a picture to show the built up ladder, and all dimensions are all given here. So, the side rails primarily it is up to 24 feet as given by OSHA, and 6 meters is the length as recommended by IS code. So, it can be continuous, and it should be at least 2 inches nominal stock lumber, so that it is having a sufficient strength. The steps must be eliminated above the landing level, so that people are not trying to climb above the landing or on the top level from where the supports are there. Surface of the ladder should be free of splinters, and put ladder on a stable and a level surface that is not slippery. If the slide is slippery, it has to be cleaned, or there should be slip pads put in there, and then the ladder has to be put in. The top and bottom of the built up ladder should be securely fastened, okay, and so that it is not moving or getting displaced with the movement of people up and down. The cleats, rungs or steps, the spacing should be uniform, and making cuts in the side rails to receive these cleats is not a good solution, because it will weaken the side rails, and it has to be actually fastened onto the side rails only, and not cutting and embedding into the side rails. The next type of portable ladder is extension ladder. As the name implies, there can be 2 or 3 sections of the ladders which can be together, okay, and you can have an adequate guides or bracket setup, so that it can slide in and out in order to do a different reach of the levels, okay. You can vary the height accordingly, and the maximum overall height as recommended by OSHA is not more than 18 meters, okay, when the extension ladder is on full swing, okay. And these are lean to ladders having at least 2 or 3 sections. Generally they do not have more than 3 sections with proper locking system, and the upper sections can slide in guides or brackets so arranged that the length of the ladder can be varied. As a safety precaution, you should also understand, so when these ladders are in the full extended position, it should have the same strength as if it is a continuous rail, okay, that should be kept in mind, and these ladders should be able to sustain at least 4 times the maximum intended load. A competent person should inspect the ladder before use for any missing rungs or any missing bolts or screws or loose components, and the sliding section as recommended by IS code is not more than 2 in number. Only 2 sections are allowed as per safety norms, and the locks and guides should be so designed that the extension ladder is having an equal strength as if it is a continuous side rail. and set the ladder at a proper angle. The proper angle is generally 1:4. What does it mean is 1 horizontal is to 4 verticals. Surrounding area should also be free from materials, obstructions, okay, obstacles or any power lines close by, okay. And whenever the extension ladders are overlapped, the overlap should be at least for 3 feet in distance, okay, that is as shown here. So, this is another ladder and this is another ladder. So, this extension should be at least 3 feet. The overlap should be at least 3 feet. Okay. The next type of portable ladder is step ladder. This is also called as a ladder because it has the shape of a when in full expanded position. So, self-supporting ladder hinge near the upper end, okay, the upper end is actually closed together with a spreader arrangement between the two sections. When in proper use, it actually looks like a letter, and that is where it is also called a ladder. Safety precautions, again this ladder should also be able to sustain at least 4 times the maximum intended load, and this ladder has one side for the people to climb and for the other side it is only for it acts as a strut and it is only for a support. To support the ladder. The overall height should not exceed more than 6 meters, and above 3 meters a ladder, then there should be a proper chain and support for the ladder in order to prevent movement or tipping of the ladder. Ladders shall be provided with an automatic locking device or spreader to hold in the same open position, and whenever the ladder is in use, it should be in the full open position with the proper lock so that the ladder is not getting close. When the ladder is moving close and not in the full open position, it can have a tipping hazard. Do not climb or stand or try to do anything with the top cap or the top step, and do not reach outside your ladder side rails. Okay, again it is primarily the awkward posture. If this is the side rails, do not try to extend or go above the side rails to reach out something. Okay, that is not advisable and you may have a fall hazard. Now, general safety instructions for any portable ladders: always maintain a 3-point contact when you are ascending or descending a ladder. Okay. So, the 3-point contact is either 2 hands and 1 leg onto the rungs. So, primarily you have to put the 2 hands onto your side rails and both the legs onto your rungs. Okay. And these 2 hands should be more close to the side rails on the rungs or on the side rails, and feet also should be more close to the side rails only, even though it is on the rungs. Okay. And when you are trying to put both the legs onto your rungs, then you should be able to put your one hand either above or below. So, at any point of time there should be 3 points of contact onto the ladder. So, if you try to carry some material, okay, what happens is you may not be able to use the 3-point contact onto the ladder, and obviously you are going to have a fall hazard. Okay. To prevent slipping, a ladder should be always secured in place, even though it is a portable ladder, and wherever it is to be used, it has to be properly secured both at the top and at the bottom. Okay. And when you are trying to climb or up or down the ladder, always face the ladder and do not try to use the other way. And this ladders shall not be used in horizontal as runways and for other purposes to meet between 2 different positions along the horizontal ways. And if the ladder cannot be secured both on the top and bottom, then there should be a substitute, a person standing on the ground floor to hold the ladder firm, so that the worker can climb and go safely. All the rungs should be clean to prevent slips, and also the shoes used by the workers also should be clean to prevent slips and trip hazards. If the surface of the floor is smooth or sloping, the ladder shall be provided with the non-slip bases, and no ladder shall be placed or leaned against any window pane, so that people are trying to open the windows or maybe any glass sashes or glass ways or any doorways or access ways or any unsafe and yielding objects. Okay, do not place a ladder the top point onto a glass pane or something, so that you are having a hazard. If they are used in the midst of driveways, passageways or public walkways, accordingly the area should be barricaded so that the ladder is not displaced or disturbed. Avoid overhead power lines, which is a general precaution for all your working from heights, especially when you are using a metal ladder. So, general more safety precautions on portable ladders. Primarily these are inspections. So, all ladders should be carefully inspected. If incidentally dropped or damaged and otherwise in use, it should be inspected before usage. Close visual inspection is recommended even more than a load testing. So, no ladder having a missing or defective rung or which depends on support only on nails or something should not be used. Defective ladders should be immediately repaired or replaced and then only they should be used. Okay. Then before use, all ladders should be tested for a load test. So, how is this load test done? Okay. Suppose there is a ladder, okay, these are the two continuous side rails and there are lot of cleats or steps. Okay. From all these cleats there is a load hung on every cleat or rung, okay, and this load is actually 1.5 times the mass of the worker plus 16 bricks. Generally it is hung from each of the rungs. Okay. If the mass of the worker is generally assumed as 68 kgs and accordingly the load is put along all these rungs and looked for visible noticeable bending or deflection. Okay. If that happens, then cross bracings has to be placed so that the ladder is fine. So, when half of the ladder is done the testing in this way, then the ladder is reversed. So, this bottom portion will come on the top, again the same procedure is repeated on all the bottom rungs and the load test is performed, so that all these steps are looked for bending support, for any visible bending. Okay. And ladders more than 5 meters in overall height remains a cautious testing, and the wooden ladder should be inspected at least once in a week for any damage or deterioration. Metal ladders can be inspected at least once in 3 months for all wear and tear, corrosion or structural failure. These are some of the thumb lines given in the IS codes. Next we will talk about safety nets. Okay. So, this is again when you talk about fall protection, safety nets is one of the ways to safeguard people, okay, from falls. So, what is a safety net? So, the safety nets are primarily to catch worker or people from when they fallen down. So, this should be installed as close as possible under or practicable under the walking or working surface from where employees are expected to fall. Okay. And suppose if the height between the walking or the working surface from where the employees fall and the safety net is, it should not be more than 9 meters below that level. Okay. And the defective nets should not be used. The causes for damage can be so many reasons in a safety net. It can be abrasion, overloading, chemical attack and so on. Okay. Safety nets should always be inspected. Again visual inspection will always do its purpose, and at least safety nets should be inspected once a week for wear, damage and other deterioration. And also there are other proper tests on safety nets. Okay. One is cord strength test and the other one is drop test. So, how is this drop test done? 140 kilograms of sand bags are generally dropped, okay, as a test mass and seen for deflection. So, if this is within a permissible limit of deflection, then it is passed, okay, and the safety nets can be continued for its use. And if there are some defective components and the meshes have all yielded and so on, then those components will be replaced and then it can be for permanent use. And when should these inspections be done? After any occurrence or incident, the inspections on safety nets should be generally done, and all mesh crossings should be secured to prevent enlargement of the mesh opening. Okay. If you see, it is like a net, okay, it is like a cross net, and the openings should be certain dimensions, okay, and that if it expands, then accordingly the safety net has to be repaired. The next fall protection measures is fall arrest system. or personal fall arrest system, which we call in short form as PFAs. Okay, so this PFAs, it's very easy to remember what is a PFA if it is in ABC. That is how when you search you will learn about PFAs. ABC is of fall protection, generally people say that is primarily your PFAs. So A stands for anchorages. Anchorages are the permanent support from where your fall protection devices are hanging. And these anchorages used for PFAs should be capable of supporting at least 5,000 pounds or twice the intended load. The next one is B. B is actually stands for body harness or full body harness, means the straps, okay, which run over the worker, which can be secured in a manner so that your lanyards is actually distributing the load onto your complete body. Okay, that's primarily it spreads the load onto your full body, as primarily called full body harness. C is for connectors, which connects the lanyards to your rope, to your lifelines. And you have also called D-rings and snap hooks, and this should also be having a minimum tensile strength of 5,000 pounds. Rope grab, it is an deceleration device which travels on a lifeline and automatically, which can by friction engages a lifeline, and so that you are actually having your limiting distance from your anchorage point to the reach of your workplace. Lanyards, the lanyards are the real say lifetime vertical lifelines which a worker uses, and this should have a minimum breaking strength of 5,000 pounds. Again, there are so many types of lanyards, like for example single leg lanyard and double leg lanyard and shock observing lanyards and so on. Single leg lanyard means from the worker you have single point of anchorage. Double leg lanyard is from the worker you have 2 points onto the anchorage. Okay, so double leg lanyard is considered more safer in terms of fall protection than a single leg lanyard. So what is a lanyard? It is a flexible line of rope or a wire rope or a strap that generally has a connector at one end for connecting the body belt or the body harness to your lifeline or anchorages. Okay, the parts are all given here. Okay, so this is a full body harness from where you have the lanyards just connected your lifelines, and this is an anchor point, and this is a rope grab. Rope grab is primarily helps you to adjust the length of your lifelines. Okay, and then there are other adjusters on every points are all given here. Okay, these are some of the hazards in personal fall arrest systems. For example, this is not a permanent anchor. Okay, the lanyard is not connected properly to a permanent anchor, and this person is actually used as an anchor for the lanyard. Again, these are all not proper ways of using a lanyard. Next, protection from falling objects. So always try to wear hard hat. PPE is compulsory. Try to wear hard hat when you are passing by a place where there is a hazard of falling objects. Erect guardrail systems along with the debris net so that the objects are not falling from higher levels. Erect a canopy structure. There is a public pathway or something. It is better to have a canopy structure so that these falling objects are not onto the public or to the workers who are passing below the side, which may go accidentally, maybe onto the workers. Barricade the area and try to have the public access to a different side, which is also a good suggestion to do in order to protect people and the workers from falling objects. And try to maintain chutes, and these chutes should also be having a proper safety net so that the material are actually catched into the particular place as shown in the pictures. And toe boards can also be little higher height so that the objects are not falling down. These are some of the protection measures from preventing objects from falling down. Then protection of men from falling down, protection under scaffolds, where persons are required to work or pass underneath a scaffold, and a screen or canopy shall be placed, and these screens shall extend to a distance of at least 1 meter beyond the edge of the scaffold above the passage to catch any material which may fall. Okay, it can be even a net with a mesh of 25 mm is also satisfactory. protection of supervisory or inspecting officials. The supervisory staff, inspecting officials or any person who have to go to the vicinity of the scaffold, they should wear a proper helmets or a safety hard hat within a zone of at least 10 meters to be protected from falling objects. They cannot also not go too close. So, they can be in the vicinity of 10 meters from the area where falling objects hazards takes place. Now, summary of fall protection, we have seen the possible hazards and also the ways to protect workers and the construction site in order to achieve a no fatality accident sites. Okay. So, elimination is the first step. Hazard elimination, wherever possible try to work on the ground floor in order wherever you think you may fall down, then try to avoid those hazard places. That is the number one step in fall protection. The next we call it as a passive fall protection, include physical barriers, example is guardrails and or parapets, so that they actually serve as a fall protection for workers who are working in the vicinity. The next one is fall restraint system. It is nothing but your PFAs wherein the stretch of your lanyards or your lifelines will not be reaching till the more than the hazard. Okay. You can reach within the vicinity, but it will not allow you to reach beyond the place wherein you may fall off. So, it will restrain from falling. The other one is fall arrest system. Suppose if you want to cross beyond that fall hazard area and you want to reach out something, then your lifelines will allow you to extend, and if accidentally you try to fall off also, your PFAs will be able to safeguard you. This is nothing but active fall protections. The last one is administrative controls, which is considered to be a least preferred and effective method and used when the conventional fall protection is not feasible. Okay. So, this fall arrest system and fall restraint system, let us discuss little bit. So, both these systems generally have PFAs as a backbone. Okay. In a fall arrest system, they are designed to arrest or stop you before hitting the lower surface in the case of a fall. So, it is like you will not fall. Okay. Your lash, okay, it is like a dog and a leash. Okay. So, the dogs can move only till the leash length. Same way is nothing but a fall arrest system. You will not go beyond certain limit and try to fall. The next one is fall restraint system. So, the worker is restrained from reaching a fall hazard. You may be free to do your work without concern of falling, and possibly no injuries will happen, because even if you fall, your lanyards and your PFAs will try to not make you fall down. So, fall restraint system is restrained from reaching a fall hazard, and fall arrest systems will protect you from after you fall. Okay, they stop. Okay. Then falls in construction sites, again summary. So, eliminate the risk. So, avoid working at height wherever possible, or locate plant and equipment in safe locations where there is no risk of a fall at all. Okay. So, number one, eliminate totally. Number two is guard the hazard. Either you can use hole covers for small openings, or you can have guardrails and safety nets. These are all passive protection, or I would say is an environment protection. So, workers can work even without proper PPEs or something, still they will not have a fall hazard. Number three, as a double precaution, protect the workers, primarily have a PFAs in place, that can be in terms of fall restraint system or fall arrest system. Okay. So, how is this I have arranged? Okay. Fall hazards, today we have classified the hazards in terms of roof or floor opening, roof slopes and scaffolds, and ladders primarily as a means to access a scaffold. So, we have discussed all these hazards. And before you fall, what are all the ways to protect for protection? Holes, for holes there is covers. For any opening and unprotected edges or openings, you can have guardrails and also a fall restraint system. Okay, this is before you fall. After you fall, then you may have to have safety nets and you can have a fall arrest system. Okay, here again guardrails are for the environment and fall restraint system is for the is primarily an environment protection. It's like an structure, okay, protection, and fall restraint system is on to the worker. Same way, after you fall, safety net is primarily a structure and fall arrest system is on to your worker. Okay. So, even in 2017 the fatal heights, okay, there was an NDTV coverage which talks about untold death of India's construction workers primarily on fatal heights. Okay. And if you are interested, you can go through this. Like this, there are so many articles which talks about fatal heights even today on the claims, compensation and so on. So, better use hard hats and better use proper PPEs when you are in the construction site, especially while working on heights. Okay. Now, all these lectures and slides that I have covered today are from all these references. Okay. Half of them are from OSHA and half of them are from IS codes. OSHA subpart L, which scaffolds, then subpart M, fall protection, subpart X, stairways and ladders, and IS codes 13416, which talks about preventive measures against hazards at workplaces. Again this talks about part 2 is on fall protection, fall prevention. IS 3696, part 1 is on scaffolds and part 2 is on ladders. IS 4912, its safety requirements of floor, roof openings and also on toe boards. IS 11057, it talks about specification for industrial safety nets. Thank you.